Hello and welcome to a very special edition of Pluckee's Tabletop Parlour Live. I'm going to attempt to do one of my army guides. I'm going to do it live in front of the camera with very minimal notes, and we will see how it goes. We are looking today at one of the legacy factions, the Vampire Counts. They are actually my personal favorite faction. And I was incredibly disappointed when it was originally announced that they weren't going to be one of the core factions made available for Warhammer: The Old World. Who are the, like, not to go on a negative note, I think they're brilliant. I think even their kind of current legacy faction rule set is still really good, really powerful, particularly in the competitive scene. But we're not going to worry about the competitive scene so much. We're going to keep this very beginner friendly. But yeah, let's start with who the Vampire Counts are, like, in the lore. So, lore-wise, the Vampire Counts in the Old World started with this fella. This is Nagash. Nagash was formerly a priest in Khemri who was looking to extend his life and kind of inadvertently basically kind of creates the law of necromancy. Lore people, I'm really doing the Cliff Notes version here, so please don't at me. He comes up with this thing called the elixir of life, where he tries to extend his life beyond natural means. He does so, ends up creating like huge armies of the undead and everything else like that, and it takes like the rest of Khemri and the lands of Nehekara. Nehekara is a term that will come up in like their influences throughout the Vampire Counts. The rest of Nehekara band together and try and destroy Nagash, and they successfully do so, or at least they think they do. However, the books of Nagash end up falling across the land, and one lass called Neferata ends up finding a bunch of the books of Nagash, and she becomes obsessed with immortality. She eventually manages to create her own version of the elixir of life, but it doesn't quite work the same way as Nagash's. She finds at night that she has a thirst for warm blood, and begins feasting on other mortal souls. So she ends up like forming a band of followers around her, mostly kind of like the rich lords of her region called Lamia. She ends up with 12 followers who, in turn, take what becomes known as the Blood Kiss, which is the way that new vampires are made. But yes, she's like basically queen of the vampires. And creates 12 followers, who then in turn end up creating all of their own little like vampire thralls and all of this sort of fun stuff. A huge vampire problem kind of erupts in Lamia, and then the same thing that happens in Nagash happens, to Lamia and Neferata. And she, the city, she isn't deposed necessarily, but the city of Lamia is sacked, and all of the vampires flee, or like those that aren't slain. Most of them flee north into the Old World, and if I have done this correctly, become basically the Vampire Counts. The 12, like the ones that are left of the 12 vampires, go off and it's thought of form different bloodlines in the Old World. The most well-known bloodlines up in they form up in Sylvania. Sorry, I should have said this is like kind of the home of the vampires, Sylvania and the regions around it. Sylvania is to the east of the Empire. Yes, so the most well-known of the bloodlines are the Larmians. So this is Neferata's remaining bloodlines. Each of the different kind of factions has their own kind of traits and stuff that they're particularly known for. The Larmians are known for being like spies, and they will seed spies in noble houses across the Empire and Bretonnia and try and work their way up into different levels of society and all of this, that, and the other. Next up are the von Carsteins. These are just like the kind of basic versions of vampires. They are very, very like Dracula coded, is kind of how they're written. Like classic Dracula coded. The blood dragons are like the super martial vampires. They're like combat monsters, and all of this, that. Then you have my personal favorites, which are the Necroarchs. These are necromancer vampires. They're super like kind of esteemed in the ways of magic, and they will put themselves up in towers and have loads of minions that will go out and collect them blood and everything like that, and they're just really, really kind of scary. Finally are the Strigoi, who are the vampires that have like kind of fallen to I've completely forgotten what the name of the curse is, but they've fallen into the ways of being like total bestial monsters, and have just become basically ghoul kings, which we'll see shortly. So these are the kind of 5 main bloodlines in the vampire counts, and in this guide we're gonna go over the vampire count army list in full. We'll go through everything, and we'll also look at the current models that are available via Games Workshop, as well as a few others that you can use to represent this army on the battlefield. And just a quick note before we kind of get going. Well, a couple of quick notes. The first one is a note on being a legacy faction. What does that mean? As I've kind of already mentioned, like there are kind of 2 distinctions at the moment in the different types of armies that you can play in the old world. The first are the main line or core factions. These are things like the Wood Elves, the Empire of Man, Warriors of Chaos, all of the kind of ones that are currently getting supported and all of that. The vampire counts are unfortunately not one of those main line ranges. It is lore reason wise, it is said that because in the lore there was a thing where the von Carsteins, like a couple of the powerful ones like Vlad and Isabella, as well as Manfred von Carstein, have recently sacked the Empire but were killed, and now that the vampire counts are kind of in hiding. But that doesn't really account for that's the von Carsteins, but what about the other 4? There's like a whole host of like kind of in-law reasons as to why there could still be vampire counts. I think it is most likely a logistical issue. It is said that there is, there's other like kind of shenanigans going off in Games Workshop and all of that. I would like to believe that it is more of a case of they are currently being like kind of a very supported range in Age of Sigmar. So you can still get a bunch of their models and play them over there. I think, given how popular the vampire counts are and how they have such a huge back catalogue of models, that I would probably drop a small fortune to kind of get a hold of at non-eBay prices. I am pretty certain that Games Workshop are going to see that people will be after their member berries and will pull these guys back in as a mainline faction, probably in the 2nd edition, is my thoughts on it. I think there are a couple of other I think most of the legacy factions are likely to return to Warhammer the Old World. We can get into a little bit of speculation later on. There is talks of like a split, and stuff has been put to different sides, and some factions can't go into Old World and stuff like that. I don't think Games Workshop will pass up an opportunity to make a buck on models. They are a model company first, at the end of the day. So if they've got a big back catalogue of them, I can't see, and they've seen just how much money like releasing old miniatures has done for the company. I have heard that the weekend that Old World was released was the biggest weekend of metal miniature sales in the company's history. I can't see that they're going to pass up putting these guys back on, particularly with such a huge range of metal miniatures and other old miniatures to go on. So that's kind of my word on it. I think they're going to come back at some point. So if you're like kind of a bit scared about like maybe getting into an army that isn't currently like main supported, I wouldn't necessarily be quite so worried about it for these guys. And although they're not being supported as a mainline faction, I did put in here somewhere they are being definitely community supported, which I think we'll get onto shortly. But if not, I'll come back to it at the end. Okay, so to get started, let's take a quick go through of the main special rules that really kind of affect the vampire counts. So first off, all of the models, all of your army are necromantic undead, which means that they cannot march because they are like necromantic constructs. So they're not allowed to march unless they can fly. So your bats and other flying like terrorgeests and other kind of flying models can march. It also means that, as you would expect, they gain the fear ability. They are immune to psychology because they don't have any brains or anything like that. So there's no way that they can succumb to fear or terror or anything else like that. They are unbreakable. So if they lose a combat, they will only ever give ground. And they are unstable. So, as I've kind of mentioned like there a second ago, if as they're causing fear, enemies need to take a fear test if they charge the unit causing fear, and that unit is bigger in model count and unit strength than the unit charging it. So if you've got a big brick of zombies and a little brick of let's say Empire Knights or whatever wants to charge them, they'll need to take a fear test. If they fail the fear test, which is just a basic leadership test, then they won't be able to charge them. At the beginning of the combat phase as well, they can take you can only take one fear test a turn. But if they, in the next round, they're still engaged, they can take they'll have to take another leadership test. If they fail that, then it's -1 to hit the unit that is causing fear. The unbreakable, as I've kind of already mentioned, they never need to take break tests if they're losing combat. They just give ground, which is just move back 2 inches. They're immune to psychology, so they auto pass fear, panic, and terror tests. They can't flee as a charge reaction. And they are unstable. This is one that takes a hot minute to get your head around. If they lose a round of combat, then they lose a wound for every point of failed combat resolution. So when you're playing the game and you're doing combat resolution, to figure out who wins a combat and stuff like that, it's not always about the most amount of models that have been killed. It is about other stuff. Are you in like a better kind of formation? Are you close order? If you're in close order and you've got enough models, then you gain an extra combat resolution point. If you're carrying a banner and you've got your battle standard bearer is also carrying a banner nearby, they will buff that combat resolution and all of that. So you win via that. You also gain points of combat resolution for each wound you cause on an enemy as well. So if at the end of the combat your like brick of skeletons or whatever haven't done that many wounds and get beaten in combat resolution by, say, 3 combat resolution points, they'll lose 3 skeleton warriors at the end of the combat. So you need to kind of bear that in mind. Now, there are ways for your vampire count units to kind of mitigate some of these problems. One of those is the Indomitable rule. So units, mostly elite units that have the Indomitable keywords, won't lose as many wounds due to that unstable rule. So it's really great. This won't accumulate with other abilities because there's a bunch of ways that you can try and mitigate you losing those wounds. So one of the other things that you'll need to worry about is the death of a general rule, which will basically cause your, like, whoever is holding the army together, one of your armies will need to be a wizard that we'll get onto in a little bit. When that wizard dies, or if it dies, the rest of the army will begin to crumble. If, however, that unit has the Dark Vitality rule, then those models aren't necessarily subject to that problem. They won't begin to crumble. This will be if you've got extra, like, kind of vampires and other, like, non-magically created or, like, constructed units. So it's very flavorful. Then a combat ability that some of your units have, I believe it is mostly just like your Grave Guard and maybe a couple of other ones, is the Cleaving Blow rule, which is very similar to the Killing Blow rule. If you do a wound roll of a 6, your opponent won't get an armor save. They can still take regen or ward saves against the attack, which is very nice. So next up, some of your units can be bought. Like, some of your units, like, as you're a big, like, necromantic army, can get brought back to life and can keep resurrecting. Some of those units can resurrect more models beyond their original size. So some units can resurrect more models, and the Newly Dead allows them to go beyond their original starting size if they've got that keyword. Ooh. Wailing Dirge. So the Wailing Dirge rule is a... Let me take a sip of water here. I'm running my mouth. Wailing Dirge. Oh my goodness. The Wailing Dirge is a type of attack that some units can make. You've got to be within 8 inches of an opponent. And you select one model. They take a leadership test at -2 to their leadership. If they fail that leadership test, they take as many wounds as they have failed the leadership. It is a devastating little attack. It's really, really nasty. And there's a few key units that get it. In your army. There are other ways that you can try and modify your opponent's leadership as well to try and increase the amount of wounds that your opponent has taken. This ability has turned this army into a competitive powerhouse. It is quite nuts. We're not going to necessarily worry about that, and I'll let you kind of figure out what's going on with what's going there. So when you're resurrecting miniatures, when you're resurrecting your miniatures, let me start again. When you're resurrecting miniatures, you have to do it in a particular order. So if you are, like, using a necromancer to reanimate a bunch of skeletons, then they have to, like, be resurrected in a particular order. So you start by like reviving any character models first, then any models that are in the unit that have got more than one wound, and then finally you do your champion. Oh, hello there. How do you kill all of the vampires, Mr. Quipter? You kill them with stakes, and you expose them to the sunlight, is how you do it. So moving on. So that's kind of the main of the special rules. A few others that you are going to come across are regenerations. So your army will be able to regenerate wounds after they have failed an armor save and a ward save. If they fail all of those, then you can attempt to regenerate wounds after that as well. Oh my goodness, I'm going back. Wrong way. There we go. Okay, next up, things that you probably want to care about. So as I've kind of already mentioned, your army is very magic. It loves its magic. You have to have a wizard at the head of your army. They can access most of like the dark laws of magic, some battle magic, the necromancy spell lore. They can also access the law of undeath, which they will definitely want to, because most of your Hello, Miguel Paco. Me looking at an army guide. I'll probably never play. Interesting. Yes, absolutely right. This is my favorite faction. So the Law of Undeath basically gives you 3 great spells that allow you to kind of mitigate some of the problems of your army. So first up, you've got Van Hal's Dance Macabre, which is really fun. The Dance of Death in English. If you cast it, you get to do a D3 modifier to either a movement, weapon skill, or initiative characteristic on a unit. If you do it on a minimum of an 8, then you only get to do it to 1 unit, or you only get to choose one of the characteristics to improve by D3. If you roll above a 12 on your casting value, you get to modify 2. Zombies shamble, so their movement speed is quite slow. They also can't march. So, giving them an extra D3 movement is really good. If they're in combat, you might want to boost their weapon skill because they are quite flimsy and can't necessarily hit all that well. And obviously, their initiative value is their speed in combat most of the time. So if you're able to boost that up on like a big unit of zombies, like you might turn this giant brick of zombies into a little combat powerhouse. It's really good fun. Question from Brick Sandwich: can a vampire thrall work as an okay necromancer equivalent with a level 1 wizard? You're talking 500 point escalation league. I would say yes, and we'll come back to that in a little bit. Hellish Vigor is your next one. Basically, it allows, if cast on a 7, you can give a unit a reserve move. So it will be able to make its normal move, and then at the end of the shooting phase, gets to make an additional move. So you can't march with most of your big bricks, but as I said, these are different ways that you can mitigate them. So you might want to, like, if you're playing, say, Quipster, you are playing against some vampire accounts, and you see that they've got a giant brick of zombies, you might want to save your fated dispel to try and stop something like Hellish Vigor, to slow down an approaching unit of zombies. Finally, one of the things that you get to do as well, my favorite thing, is you can raise dead and bring even more zombies onto the board. You get to, it's only got 1 casting value, and you can bring back up to 2d3 new zombies. They don't count for any victory points and everything else like that, and it just means you've got to have extra zombies in your pouch ready to go. One thing that you can do to your base vampires, and it's just your vampires, you can't do it to your necromancers or anything else, is you can give them vampiric powers, which will kind of change what they can do, and you can make some really, really interesting and flavorful vampires. So, for example, just on the screen here, you can, for example, with the Master of the Black Arts, for 30 points, you can increase that vampire thrall from a level 1 wizard to a level 2 wizard for just 30 points or something like that. Or you can make, with the flying horror one, I'm not going to show it fully, you can give it the fly keyword as long as it's an on-foot vampire lord as well. Or you can giving it a 20 for 20 points. You can give it the terror rule, which is crazy. Like if I'm looking at my wood elves, it's 50 points to give them the terror rule. So that's I'm quite jealous of that actually. Okay, so that's all of kind of the main thing, and this is the point that I was going to get to a moment ago. And this is to do with kind of the legacy stuff and a thing of note. You might have heard, if you're a beginner, you might have heard of the term renegades or renegade vampire counts. And the renegade vampire stuff is for legacy factions. And it's a community mod made by this guy in the Burger King hat here, Val Heffelfinger from the Square-based podcast. They have done some community mods to some of the legacy factions to try and just bring them a little bit more in line with some of the core factions that have received updates and stuff like that. It's minor tweaks as the FAQs and erratas have come out. I wouldn't necessarily worry so much about using the renegade list, as it's kind of a few extra tweaks that you won't necessarily maybe stay on top of. They're quite popular in a lot of the communities. And I just double check with your opponent if you do get around and you do want to use the renegade lists, then yeah, as I said, check with your opponent, and most of them are pretty cool with it, because it's very, very minor tweaks. It's a great bit of work that Val has done over there as well. But yeah, they are maybe a little bit more competitive focused than beginner focused, so just bear that in mind. Okay. With that, let's start looking at the units. We'll take a look at the units first. I'll kind of give you the highlight of what it is, what they do, and then we'll look at some of the miniatures. So let's start, as I said, with the characters. So in your Grand Army, you need to have at least one wizard. Which I'll get to in a second. And then per 1,000 points, you can have either one vampire count, that's your big head honcho vampire, one master necromancer, or one Strigoi ghoul king, which I'll get to as well. And then for every 1,000 points, you can also have one white king or banshee. And then you can have kind of as many vampire thralls, necromantic acolytes, white lords, and Khan wraiths as you like. So, your vampires are your big head honcho vampires. They're as tough and as expensive points-wise as you would kind of think. I am a big fan of using vampires. I think I think they're incredibly flavorful. You can team them up with their vampiric powers to turn them into really kind of unique, interesting characters. They have access if you do decide to make them a wizard. You've got to spend points on making them a wizard, a level 2 wizard for the vampire count, and with the law of dark magic or whatever it is, the vampiric power, you can bump them up to a level 3 wizard, which is quite nice, and I think that's kind of all you need at the moment. Miguel, I will get to that question in a second. Do we have a sub-faction where it's the possibility? No sub-factions at the moment, I'm afraid, for the vampire counts. But I may have a solution to that a little later on. Yeah, special rules wise, they have dark vitality. So if the general collapses, then, you know, if you've got any other vampires like vampiric thralls and stuff floating around on the board, then they won't crumble, which is good. They're flammable, so if your opponent hits them with flaming attacks, then they won't be able to regenerate. They're indomitable too, so if they lose combat res, they're going to lose less wounds, which is going to be quite good. They don't have any innate ward saves or anything else like that, so it's always quite good to give them an extra ward save with some upgrades and stuff like that. Talisman of protection, all of that is always good to just protect them. But you know, they're going to be quite spenny that way. Okay, onto your necromancers. These are just your like supreme wizards. They're really, really, really good stuff. Very, very popular at the moment. They're quite generally quite cheap, but the reason that you really want them is for this thing. This is the Invocation of Nehek. Basically, you do a leadership test with them, and they have, you know, pretty decent leadership 8. It's not the best, and I think there are ways that you can improve it as well. You take a leadership test, and you select a friendly a friendly unit within 12 inches, and it can recover a certain number of wounds, which will depend on the wizard level of the unit. Of the wizard, plus a certain number. So like for regular infantry, it will be their wizard level plus D3, whereas like cavalry +1. And then, as you can see, like for monsters and behemoth, you're only getting 1 wound back a turn for the thing. So it's pretty good. Highlighting that. I should have highlighted that a minute ago. We're getting used to this. Your third and final big baddie here are the Strigoi Ghoul Kings. So you don't have 2 different types, you just have the one. This is kind of like an alternative. Like this is the only kind of like different bloodline of vampire count that you can currently access in the in the vampire counts. These are like just supposed to be like giant, like kind of big brooding monsters. Like you can see they've got 5 attacks base, which is insane. They also have the hatred all enemies rule, which I really, really like. You get to reroll hit rolls in combat. They've got poisoned attacks, which is great. And they can take a mount as well in the form of a Terrorgeist, which we'll get to in a hot minute. They can also recover lost wounds, but if they kill an enemy unit, but if they have killed something, they only get to roll a single d6 when following up, because they've gotten so caught up in eating the corpse of their enemy, which I just think is really, really flavorful, and I really, really like it. I need to stop highlighting. Okay, so that's like kind of your big main ones. Let's kind of go through the other ones that are available. First up, that we'll touch very, very, very lightly, are Khan Wraiths. These are basically, I think the old model was basically just a Grim Reaper, which I really like. I think I've got one at my parents' house somewhere. What's really nice about them is they cause terror. They're really, really cheap as well. So you can have one just like popping up, like doing attempting a charge just to cause terror because it causes terror. So I think that's really nice. Being ethereal, it can't join any unit that isn't ethereal and isn't an infantry. So it's quite difficult to like put these in like a unit of skeletons or zombies or something like that. It's quite difficult. So you can kind of just have one of these things like kind of just floating around and scaring the pants off of other units, which is quite nice. Okay, white. Question a hot minute ago about if you wanted to run just a white Lord army or something like that. Unfortunately, rules as written, you aren't actually able to run just a straight up white army. I think. However, if I remember correctly, because I haven't put them down here, there is a magic item that might allow you to take a white as a leader. If in your escalation league, you wanted to just do one, I would probably just negotiate with your friend and say, look, if your white lord dies, he's going to act as your wizard for the purposes of like crumbling and stuff like that. If you know, I think that would be perfectly fine in a little battle march league. Raise that as a way to kind of get around it. I think would work fine. And I think, for, like I said, in a 500 point list and you're just doing a little flavorful one, I don't think anyone's going to have a problem with that. If they do, they're a douche. So yeah, your white kings and white lords. So your white king is like your bigger, like your lord version of the guys. I mean, they're both toughness 5, which is just really good. And weapon skill 5 as well. I love these guys. Leadership 9 and only 85 points for a white king. Just a little combat powerhouse. They can. Yeah, they can be mounted. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, which is nice. Both of them have the killing blow rule as well, which is really nice. So in combat, if they wound someone on a wound roll of a 6, an infantry or a cavalry person, they will just instantly kill them, which is lovely. The White Lord, as well as the Vampire Thrall, can take a white banner. Or can be the battle standard bearer, sorry. And they have a slightly different, a slight variation on the normal battle standard bearer rule that basically just allows, this is one of the ways that you can kind of stop the unstable rule. So it stop your units from losing wounds to the unstable rule. And that's with the change to hold your ground. I really like them. Really good fun. But I like everything in this army. It's like I said, it's my favorite army. I love them. Okay, your Tomb Banshees. These are like screaming ghosts. And the big thing is they're a really cheap way to get that Wailing Dirge on the table. So you put which is obviously very flavorful for the traditional Irish Banshee on a game board. It's wicked. They do a Wailing Dirge attack. So if you get them within 8 inches and they can do a Wailing Dirge in the shooting phase, they're just gonna absolutely knock stuff for 6. It's great. They'll scare the pants off of things. Okay, so that's all of the character units. All of them have, I think, bar the Khan Wraith and the Tomb Banshee, which have to be on foot. Everyone else can take a mount. Plenty of mounts to get into. So the Vampire Council Thralls can take a Nightmare, which is basically just a really buff horse. They can take a Coven Throne. A Coven Throne is like this, we'll get to in a minute, which is this crazy chariot, which is awesome. An Abyssal Terror. There isn't actually a kind of model available for it, but it's basically kind of like a smaller necromantic construct that they can ride. The original one, I think, that I remember had like this sort of weird dinosaur head. It was really cool if you can find it. Or they can ride a zombie dragon, which is just my absolute favorite. I love zombie dragons. Hey, man is looking at my army. It's my favorite army. The Master Necromancer or Necromantic Acolytes, they can ride a Nightmare or a Mortis Engine. Mortis Engine is another kind of crazy crazy good chariot thing. Again, the Abyssal Terror and the Zombie Dragon are what I said. Strigoi Ghoul Kings can only ride Terrorgeasts, which are like crazy bat constructs, which I love as well. I've got a Terrorgeast in my cabinet over here. I'll get them out in a little bit. Then the White King or White Lord can take a Skeletal Steed. Turns out I highlighted all of these things. Hey, I need to remember this. I should click these buttons. Okay, so that's when I don't click the buttons. Then yeah, Skeletal Steed. Just a very simple kind of horse, undead horse. Yeah, it's pretty good. Comes with barding, has the first charge rule, which is very good. It is necromantic undead though, so obviously it can't march like normal horses. Nightmares are similar, but they gain the counter charge rule, and they're a higher strength as well. I really like Nightmares. These are the ones that the Blood Knights ride. So they're like kind of part skeletal horse and part like regular like kind of zombie horse. But yeah, it's the Nightmare is like kind of, I didn't realize until like fairly recently that it's a play on, like as a proper play on words, like a mare being like a horse or steed or whatever. And there's like a whole other reason with the knight bit, and I didn't clock it until recently. Okay, so the Coven Throne, big toughness 5 wounds, 210 points. It does a bunch of impact hits, but you gain a couple of like interesting special rules with it. You gain Ghoulish Glamour. Enemy units have to make a leadership test before they hit it, otherwise they only hit on 6. You also gain a bound spell, which is the Scrying Pool. It's a bound power level 2. You get to reroll any hit rolls of a natural 1 if you manage to successfully do it, which is fine. It's nice. I like it. I've done the thing. I've just put all of this effort in and I've not even bothered with it. Okay. Mortis Engine, very similar to the Coven Throne, slightly cheaper, but has access to the Wailing Dirge rule, which is really nice. It can also access the have I done the thing? Yeah, I have done it. It's got the Accursed Reliquary, which gives a +1 modifier to movement and initiative characteristics of necromantic undead, whilst they're within the command range of the necromancer. So that's going to be like if they're within 8 inches, unless they're your lord, in which case they'll be 12 inches. It can fly as well, which is I didn't mention before. So this thing will be able to march, despite being necromantic undead. It's also got, which is really nasty, the Blasphemous Tome rule, which gives any friendly wizards within command range +1 to their casting roll, which is really nice. Any miscast whilst within the command table must roll twice on the miscast table though, which is nuts. So yeah, it's a real buff and also a boon at the same time. Cool. The Abyssal Terror, it's just a big combat monster thing, gives you +4 wounds. Very nice. It's a cheap way to access a decent mount. The Terrorgeist is another like big monster, which I'll show you the model shortly. It can be its own thing as well. We'll get to that in the special and rare options, but we'll just look at it here. It's got regeneration 5. It's got that Wailing Dirge rule as well, which this is a really popular kind of thing to have because of the Wailing Dirge. Its Infested rule means that when it loses its last wound, it explodes in a flurry of bats, and anyone in base contact with it takes D6 strength 2 hits. It's got some really nice attacks with poisoned attacks, and it's Rancid Maw does multiple wounds too. It's a decent mount as well, giving +1 toughness. So I think you're the only thing that can take it is the Strigoi Ghoul King. So it will be a toughness 6 with an extra 5 wounds. So I think it's going to be like toughness 6 at 9 wounds for plus 185 points, which is mental. That's very good. Okay, not that we care too much about what's good and stuff, but these guys are pretty nuts. Okay, cool. On to the zombie dragon, which is my favorite of all of the dragons. I love playing zombie dragons when I played the Yu-Gi-Oh card game. I had like a bunch of different zombie dragon cards when I was a kid, because freaking love that game. Anyway, yeah, big. It's very similar to like kind of most other dragons, except obviously it's undead, and it's on quite a large base as well. So it's not as nimble as maybe some of like the elven dragons, or which are only on like 60 by 100. So this thing's on a by 100 by 150 millimeter base, which it's quite a large base size, which is kind of good to know. Yeah. Extra toughness, extra wounds as well. Again, like your vampire count riding one of these things is going to be at toughness 6, which is mental. The carrion feeders, any model in combat with it gains a -1 modifier to their initiative characteristic. Yeah, that's the end of the rules for the characters. Let's take a look at some of the minis that are available for them. So I've got like a bunch of the different like kind of vampire miniatures that are currently available. So a couple of my favorites. Big fan of Lady Annika, which I think can kind of act like this. These are currently both under the Soul-like Gravelord range, I should say. All of this stuff at the moment, I'll point out when it isn't. It will be under some of the other death factions. This stuff, if you're getting it directly from Games Workshop, this is where it all comes from. So they're pretty easy to spot. There's a bunch of different vampires. I have not been exhaustive with all of them because there are a bunch of different ones available. I really like Lady Annika. I know not many people are hot on this vampire thrall with the bats coming out of its hair. I personally really, really like it. I think it's a really flavorful model. Yeah, it's really good fun. I like the bats. What can I say? Bat! Cool. A couple of different ones you've got available as well. Setkar, who I think could make like kind of an interesting Necroarch vampire as well, with the giant snake, which I quite like. Kritzer, the rat prince, I think can probably act as a decent von Carstein style vampire with very little work. You just have to deal with the rats, and then I think this is probably where you're going to be able to get like I've picked up this box before it moved over into this kind of larger undead box, and that's the Crimson Court. You might still be able to get a hold of them, but it gives you access to 4 very kind of easy to pick up vampires, including this guy, which I think I've completely forgotten his name. I think it's Duval, the guy in the red armor, and I think he claims to be like one of the von Carsteins and stuff as well. So yeah, there's loads of like on foot guys currently available that you can pick up. Came out last year, Carlina von Carstein. She was the Warhammer Plus subscription. I think you can probably still get a hold of her on eBay, although, your mileage may vary with that. She was like a one-off model, so she's probably going to be a bit scalped. I picked one up. She is my Drakari Archon. If you wanted to go a little bit more rough and ready, you could go with the Askurgan True Blades, which are, interesting. Like that's an interesting way to get like a bunch of interesting vampires. I've got to stop saying interesting. but yeah, they're like, this wolf kind of version on the left is quite interesting. If you wanted to make like a really martial like kind of based vampire, I think these would be great to use. But what you're really after is the ones on mounts. Welcome to Flavor Country. This thing is just my favorite. I was in awe, and I still haven't picked one up because like, look at it. It's just absolutely gorgeous. I know Mediocre Hobbies has done a video where he's managed to get one on the appropriate base size for Old World, and it's not been a problem. So yeah, definitely usable. Yeah, definitely still able to be used in Old World. So not a problem. Other units that you can use, Vampire Lord on Nightmare, like the Ridden one works really well. I don't know about getting this on a 30 by 90 base, 30 by 60, sorry, not 30 by 90. But it looks like it should go on. Like it should mount pretty easily. If you wanted a Vampire Lord on Abyssal Terror, I think the Vengorian Lord model should work pretty nicely. I've got one as well somewhere, and I think it would go on a 50mm base with a little bit of work. Like I think it's on like a 60mm round, and it uses that quite well. But I think you could probably get it on a 50. Coven Throne still exists to ride on, so that's not a problem at all. Okay, your necromancers are actually quite thin on the ground. There's not many of them available. You've got this kind of goober here on the left, who is just like quite an old necromancer model. He does come with a modeled base, so but I'm not sure if it's a 20mm base or if it's the 25mm. If you are a Warhammer Plus TV member or Warhammer TV member or whatever it is, you can access this like dioramaed necromancer. I have seen people use this guy as an on-foot necromancer. It is quite popular though to like kit bash and make your own necromancer. I have done one from the Curse City graveyard guy, which is good fun. I do think, like, just for mounted ones though, I could easily see the brand new Leech Priests from Khemri with a little bit of work being quite easy to like kind of use as necromancers and a mounted necromancer. I think it's quite a good idea to have your necromancer on a steed, so you can kind of get him out of hot situations pretty quickly. Yeah, I would definitely recommend doing getting them on some form of mount. The Mortis engine is still available. It's a dual kit with the Coven Throne. These go out of stock pretty regularly because they're in demand for competitive lists. Okay, your Strigoi Ghoul Kings. This is where you leave the Soulblight Gravelord range and you go into... I've completely forgotten the name of them. What are they blooming called? They're not... Oh my god. It's just the Ghoul King guys with Usharan and all of that, and they're really cool, really flavorful. Shotgun Sam, you've got one of the normal necromancers you got for D&D, but now you want to change them to a square base. Do it, Shotgun Sam. Anyway, what are these guys from? I've completely forgotten the name now. Just because I've been running my mouth now for coming up to an hour. What are these guys called? Flesh Eater Courts, thank you, Miguel. Saves me looking it up. Thank you. They're the Flesh Eater Courts models. Yeah, I think either of these will work really, really nicely for your Strigoi Ghoul Kings. I think with your Strigoi Ghoul Kings, you can give them vampiric powers. So if you wanted to give one of them the wings, that would work nicely here for this guy on the right. If you pick up the Terrorgeist model, he's still available. You get a Strigoi Ghoul King in there as well to ride on one. Okay, finally, so for your ghost units and your whites, you've still got plenty available. The White King on foot on the left is just, even if you don't like play Vampire Counts or like Soul Black Ghosts or whatever, it's just a beautiful model, and it's like, you know, going on 15 years old at this point, and it's still in production for good reason. Look at that damn thing. It's gorgeous. You've got the new one that has arrived on the right. I'm pretty sure that this one comes with the option to be a banner bearer as well. So you could have like a mounted battle standard bearer with this guy on the right. So I think that would work nicely. For your Khan Wraiths and your Tomb Banshees, you just use the ghost guys from, like, as I said, I've now completely forgotten the names of all of these different factions from AOS. Nighthaunt, that's the one. Nighthaunt. Memory serves me. Just basically take your pick from the Nighthaunt range. There's loads of them. They're really flavorful, really cool models, and just make sure you differentiate them on the battlefield. I think this is a great way to like just pick loads of these great models from the AOS range, I think, because they are like, you know, if anyone is saying that they're not beautiful, like they have no soul. Like, these things are just all gorgeous. I love them. Okay, characters out of the way. Let's run through the core stuff. So in your core, you like, the thing I should actually say about it, actually, before we move into core, like, your characters are going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting for your army. They're going to be like pumping, like you have to protect them, but they're also going to, you want them in combat, particularly if you've got like vampire counts and stuff like that, you want them in combat to be like really heavy hitters. Your core are all trash that you're just going to throw at your opponent, try and use them to cause fear, try and cause them to, you know, just hold up your opponent's army, eat a bunch of shots from like bows and arrows and dwarven guns and empire guns and everything like that. They're great. You're going to be painting lots of them. As base, you can have, and you must have at least 25% of your army be skeleton warriors, zombies, crypt ghouls, bat swarms, or dire wolves, who are all great. If your army has a white, you can take one unit of Graveguard or Black Knights, which we'll get to shortly, as a core choice. Oh, yeah, I've highlighted that thing again. Okay, these are just... So start off with Skeleton Warriors. I really like them. They come with light armor and shields and hand weapons. Let me go back. So at the moment, they will have a base 4-up armor save, as long as you don't give them thrusting spears. I like thrusting spears personally. I think they're good fun, but you don't need to worry about it so much. Up to 1,000. 1 unit per 1,000 points can take a magic standard. There's a bunch of very, very good ones available in the vampire count list. But even just some of the basic ones like improving combat res are really, really good. You have to have a minimum of 10 of them, but otherwise you could take 100 of these guys. What would that be? 500 points in 1 unit of 100 skeleton warriors. I dare someone to do it. That would be awesome. Just like 100, like one big 100 skeleton warrior break for 5 points would be amazing. Just base. I guess it would be 515 points if you took if you took the champion and the standard bearer. That would just be awesome. Maybe I will do it one day and be a crazy person. They have the horde rule as well, so that's going to give them bonus combat resolution as well. Zombies, very similar. They can't take a champion, but I definitely think you want to take the standard bearer at least, and you want to take these in big blocks. When I'm running my zombies, I run them in max blocks of 40 because they're very, very stupid. I really like them. Yeah. Crypt ghouls, I think, are probably a bit slept on. They're skirmishers. These are like one of the few quite effective skirmishing units that you have. They're toughness 4. These guys are basically like dryad profiles. Except they have a reserve move and they have poisoned attacks. They're really, really good. I really, really like them. Meanwhile, putting a big unit of skeletons on the board, I've got a bone to pick with you. Absolutely. I love me the crypt ghouls. I think they're really good fun. We'll get to models in a hot minute. For these, next up, you can run bat swarms. Minimum size of 3. They have fly. They are skirmishers. These things die pretty quickly to. Excuse me. These things die pretty quickly. I tend to find to the unstable rule, they will just crumble really, really fast. But I like them. They're good fun. I don't like it. There's nothing I don't like in this in this army list. Okay, your direwolves, one of my favorite units actually. They are one of the quite fast units that you have, considering you're all necromantic constructs. So these are undead dogs. One of them can be a champion, which is the Doom Wolf, which is really good fun. They make a vanguard move. So before the game starts, they get to make a move. However, if they do make that, they won't be able to charge in the same turn. So bear that in mind. They also can make a reserve move. So once again, at the end of the shooting phase, they can make another rule move. So they're a really fast unit to kind of get into your opponent's side very, very quickly. The slavering charge rule is good as well. So gaining +1 strength in a turn that they charge. Okay, so those two special units that you can potentially take are the Grave Guard and the Black Knights. These are like your really tough skeleton warriors. They're like ancient wights that have been brought up, and they're like covered in really effective armor, decent weapons, and stuff like that. They're not as blunt ancient weapons. They're still a bit sharp. They are able to do the cleaving blow if you hit with them. They come as standard with heavy armor, hand weapons, and shields, but you can give them great weapons if you remove their shields, which I'm always kind of mixed on. Sometimes I like giving them great weapons, and sometimes I kind of regret it. They can have the implacable defense rule, which kind of sits on top of the unbreakable rule. So normally if they fail a combat, they would have to give ground. If they instead, they can just choose to remain stationary, so not have someone follow up and all of that, unless they are more than double outnumbered, in which case they have to give ground. Really, really good. You'll probably want a couple of different Graveguard units in your army. They're very tasty. Black Knights are basically horse riding Graveguard. Toughness 4 knights, which is just awesome. They move at a speed of 7 inches, which is very good. They have the cleaving blow rule as well, which is also fantastic. They can take lances and barding, so I think you can take them up to a 3-up armor save if you give their horses barding, which is really nice. Okay, on to minis that are available for them. So Skeleton Warriors and Graveguard are just available from the Games Workshop store. As Shotgun Sam has just pointed out, though, for the Skeleton Warriors, if you want to go get a lot of them for cheap, you can just use the Tomb King stuff. You will need to get different shields, though, because they only come as standard with the Tomb King shields. I think the Graveguard are probably about right priced. If I think they rank up fine if you're using the sword and shield variant, but if you are using the great weapon ones, I think one of them has a bit of a problem because he's I've seen someone trying to rank him up, and I haven't picked these guys up. He's holding a giant white blade over his head, and it kind of mucks up the alignment a little bit. So be careful kind of there. Zombies. You can get them from Games Workshop. You can get a pack of 20 of them, and they cost, I think they're quite spenny for being incredibly chaff infantry. I rarely do this, but I actually recommend that you go and pick up the zombies from Mantic, because you get 40 of them for about the same price as the Games Workshop ones. If you are buying from a friendly local gaming store, you can probably get a bit of a discount on them as well. And it's not like you're going to not get into an official Games Workshop tournament or event if you are thinking about bringing these to one of those, because you won't actually be able to play a legacy faction at an official Games Workshop event anyway. So it's kind of by the by, and these guys do just look great. Look at this, look at that goober in the middle. He's great. For direwolves, you can pick some up. Bat swarms, I'm a little bit short on where to go. I've got some bat swarms. I'll show you all in a bit, but they're from Curse City, and I think Curse City is kind of a bit difficult to get a hold of at the moment. So I'm not sure what the solution here is for bat swarms. For your ghouls, I clearly forgot to put. I forgot to put the model in, but you can get still classic ghouls from the Flesh Eater Courts. Black Knights are available as brand new variants, which are really, really fun and really beautiful models. But you can still get a hold of the slightly older Black Knights if you pick up a Hex Wraith set from the Night's Haunt section. So these guys are still available if you want to get a hold of the slightly older ones and slightly cheaper ones. Okay, onto your special units. So up to 50% of your army's point value can be spent on the aforementioned Graveguard or Black Knights. You can get one of each, one or the other per 1,000 points. You can get Crypt Horrors or Fellbats per 1,000 points. Corpse Carts, up to 3 of them. Up to 1 unit of Spirit Hosts per Khan Wraith or Tomb Banshee. And if you have a Strigoi Ghoul King as your general, you can take 1 Vargeist or 1 Terrorgeist as a special choice. I won't cover the Terrorgeist, but I'll take a look at the Vargeist. Starting with the Crypt Horrors. These are kind of your big monstrous infantry. They're toughness 5, 3 wounds, 3 attacks, hitting at strength 4. Yeah, they're kind of like basically giant ghouls, except they don't have. They're not in skirmish formation, and they don't have poisoned attacks. Oh, they do have poisoned attacks. Excuse me. Yeah, they're giant ghouls, which is nice. Fellbats are big giant bats, and they can fly across the board and go and like you want these things to go and harass your opponent's war machines and stuff like that. So if you're playing against Empire or Dwarves or whatever, you go and send these to go and lock up cannons and stuff like that, which is what their job is. Spirit Hosts. Oh, I forgot to do my corpse carts, sorry. Okay, so corpse carts are really a supporting unit for your army. I don't like, they've got like kind of combat profiles and stuff like that, but really what you want them to do, you want one of them to have something like the warped tinted. Oh no, I'm going too far. There we go. No. There we go. You want them to take the warped tintinabulation, which, if a necromancer nearby, or if a unit recovers wounds due to the invocation of Nehek special rule, you can roll a d6 on a 4+, the unit recovers an additional wound, and it's also going to reduce the number of wounds lost via unstable by 1. And this one is cumulative with the indomitable rule, which is really, really nice. So you can kind of like build this like little nest of a necromancer with a bunch of corpse carts nearby that are going to keep your skeletons and zombies just like staying alive, doing the BG walk. As they traipse across the battlefield, so they're really good fun. The Balefire Brazier, you can take one or the other. I like the Warped Tintinabulation one because it's fun to say. The Balefire Brazier is a brazier. Brazier. I think brazier is that's a woman's undergarment, isn't it? Anyway, Balefire Brazier increases the spell value by 1, which I think in post 1.5, regardless of whether you're playing competitive, is just going to make spellcasting really, really good, actually. So it depends on what you're doing. If you're building a kind of a narrative list that is lots of magic and all of that, you're probably going to want the Balefire Brazier. But if you've just got some like crazed necromancer, then maybe you go for the tintinabulation, or maybe you have a couple. You can have up to 3 of them. So yeah. Good lord, I'm not used to speaking this much. Okay, on to the spirit hosts. Spirit hosts are an ethereal. I've got to stop touching buttons too much. So I think here you could potentially add your tomb. No, you couldn't actually, because they're swarms. So yeah, this is a swarm of ghosts. They're ethereal. And I think if you got like a big enough unit of them, so you can have up to 6 of them, you could just try and like ram them and anvil up an opposing unit, because they are ethereal. So unless your opponent's got magical attacks, they're not going to hit them for crap, which is really, really good. Yeah, they're not undisciplined as well. And with the bound spirits. In other words, this unit can use the inspiring presence rule of your general, which is great. Will we have that info in a format like the other video you have? I'll probably end up editing this out because I am recording this. But yeah, if you go back, like I kind of made at the beginning of the video, I kind of explained why I'm kind of doing it like this. So we'll see if this works. If people like it, they like it. If they don't, then they don't. But yeah. Okay, on to Vargheists. So these are kind of like the Crypt Horrors, but they are they're flying versions of Crypt Horrors, and they don't have poisoned attacks. Again, you can march these things. So you could potentially move them 18 inches, which is pretty good. Quite tough. Toughness 4, strength 5, with an AP 2 attack, which is really nice. I like them. Okay, as for the minis, so the Crypt Horrors and Vargheists are available as is at the moment from the Flesh Eater Courts range. As well, I think the Vargheists you can pick up from the Soulblight Gravelords range, because they're supposed to be like unhinged vampires. They're just a dual kit. You just pick them up and make one or the other. Spirit hosts are still available as well as our corpse cards. These are all old Vampire Counts models from like the early 2010s, I think, that are just still available. Fellbats are kind of newer models. I think they came out 2 or 3 years ago. These things have a little bit of an issue ranking up because I use these current models as my Fellbats. They have a little bit of an issue ranking up, but you don't need to worry about it too much because they're skirmishing most of the time anyway, so they don't want to be like right next to each other. On to your rare stuff, the final bit. So for your rare units, you can take one of the aforementioned Vargeists. You can take up to 2 Black Coaches, which are some of my favorite units. You can take a Terrorgeist or Vargulf, one of which per 1,000 points. 1 unit of Blood Knights per 1,000 points, or a unit of Hex Wraiths per Khan Wraith or 2 Banshee taken. So let's start off with the Black Coach. This is basically a magic, ethereal, flying cart that's carrying around a dead vampire in it and giving off a bunch of like kind of crazy magical energy, which is just really good fun. It does D6 plus 2 impact hits. It causes terror as a spectral. Whilst it's spectral, it can turn spectral during the command phase of the turn. If it's spectral, it loses the impact hit rule, but does gain the ethereal and fly rules. Also, the rider has the spectral scythe, which just bypasses armor saves, which is really nice. I love them. I think you can like we'll look at the model in a minute, but it's beautiful as well. Vargulfs are like kind of basically just werewolves, is the way that I kind of view them. At least that's how I think they're like kind of supposed to be viewed. This is your way to get a big old werewolf. It's got swift stride. It acts by itself. It doesn't, it ignores combat resolution if it's getting charged in the flank or in the rear, which is nice. And it causes terror. It's 140 points, toughness 5, 4 wounds. It's pretty good. I think it probably wants to be a supporting attacker. So you charge something like maybe you get a big block of skeletons in, and then you can like run one in the run one of the Vargulfs in the side for 140 points. I think it's quite nice. Blood Knights. These things are terrifying. These are your like super buffed up knights. They ride nightmares, so they're really tough. You can march with these guys. They're also they can also take the drilled rule, so they can be in a marching column before they charge. So they'll be able to move 3 times their movement speed the turn before, flip out into a wide flank, and then go and charge at the start of the turn in the charge phase, which is really, really good. They've got the counter charge ability. They've got first charge. Most of the time, they're going to be in full plate armor with barding and shields for a 2-up armor save. The only kind of issue that they have is that they've only got 1 wound apiece. So for 40 points a model, if you do lose one, they're really, really painful. Thankfully, they're undead, so you can you can Invocation of Nehek them back to life, and all of that as well, which is really nice. As it says in the as it says in the flavor there, it's said that even the fabled Grail Knights of Bretonnia can't match Blood Knights, lance for lance upon the battlefield. They're just wicked. All of them can act essentially like a character and declare challenges as well, which is really fun. I had a really fun game actually against my friend Will, where he had a unit of hammerers which have the same ability, and my my unit of Blood Knights with my vampire count in the middle was playing against his like dwarf lord in a unit of hammerers, which all do the same thing, and they're all like facing off against each other, and it was great. It was such a fun like last turn of the game encounter. It was really, really good fun. Very, very enjoyable. More water. Where are we at? Okay. Almost there. Almost through it. Okay. Hex Wraiths. Hex Wraiths are basically like grim, like your Khan Wraiths on horses. They are like grim, like a big load of like the horsemen of the apocalypse that you can throw around in battle. They are ethereal, again, which is great. They cause terror. They can fly, so you can march them. They have a spectral reaper attack, which you can do by moving through an opposing unit, and each one of them will basically take like effectively a mortal wound if you will take that from like 40k or something like that, where they take a single strength 4 hit each, and they can't take an armor save against it. It's wicked. I love it. Very, very flavorful. Okay, on to the minis, the final section of them. So, Blood Knights currently exist and have very, very rankable, you can rank them up really easily. And if you can sort of rank them up in a way where it looks like all of their lances are like being brought down one by one in like a stop motion sort of way, which is kind of fun. The black coach, I think, is a slight issue. It is I've got one, but I haven't built mine yet. But I am, and the reason I haven't built it is I am very, very aware that this thing is huge. I think the legacy PDF says that this thing needs to be on a 50 by 100 millimeter base, and I think it is too big, even though it's like barely touching the ground. Even that space is just it's just not going to go on a 50 by 100 millimeter. So I think I need to come up with a way that it can kind of fly and be up on like kind of a higher, like kind of flying stand sort of thing. But I want to come up with like kind of an interesting way of doing it. I think I've seen like one of the tabletop tactics guys did like an interesting sort of flying stand for it. So I might just like go and nick that as an idea. So for your Vargulf, there is the recent like kind of flesh eater quartz guy. He is on like a massive base though. And it's supposed to be on a 50 by 50 millimeter. So I don't know, like, unless you did some like kind of work, whether this one would actually work. The Varg Skier, this guy on the right, I have one of these again from Curse City. This thing works fine. You might be able to pick one up on as an eBay steal if you want to play around with the Vargulf. They're good fun. I think you should. So for your Hex Wraiths, the Hex Wraith kit is still available as part of that dual kit. It's under the Nighthaunt range. I have used these Dreadblade Harrows and picked up a few of them. Maybe I'll show you in a minute what I have done with mine. But you can also get like a guy that looks like a leader, because I think they look like they were just awesome, and I saw them and I was just like, I want these things as part of my Vampire Counts army. Okay, so that's the list. That's everything. Let's take a look at how you can build a quite simple 1,000-point list to get going. I know that this is a little bit more than the 500 points maybe for the Battle March, but I think we can even pare that down from here, and we can look at making a 500-point Battle March list as well. So I would recommend that if you can get a hold of this spearhead box on the left. This is the Blood Crave Hunt. This is the older one. It gives you 20 skeleton warriors, a vampire thrall, 5 Blood Knights and 3 Crypt Horrors or Vargheists. And then the newer spearhead box for the Soulblight Gravelords is the Death Rattle Tombhost, which is just excellent for Soulblight Gravelords players because you get a boatload of Skeleton Warriors. So you get 20 Skeleton Warriors, you get 10 Graveguard, or they call them Barrow Knights, and then you get the Black Knights at the top as well, which I think are called Barrow Knights as well, or something like that, one or the other. You also get a White Lord or White King in there as well, which is cool. I think both of that sets you back. They're about £70 each if you are buying from a friendly local gaming store. So you can get 1,000 points of a Horde army for about £140, which I think is a bit of a bargain. Actually, when I was crunching the numbers earlier, I thought, well, like I know that's obviously going to be a bit more in the US and the EU and stuff like that, but as a Brit in Southeast England, I was looking at my Wayland Games. If you're in the UK, go and buy from Wayland Games. Link in the doobly-doo. You'll get some money off. Yeah, and I thought it was a pretty decent steal. Like when you put all of the stuff together, and I've done very little in the way of like, I think I've only added like full commands to them. You get 990 points, and that's before like I haven't even made that general my oh goodness. I haven't even made my don't that's fine. I don't want to do that. I haven't even made my general a wizard there. So I don't even think that this is technically legal. I would probably like remove the Crypt Horrors, and then give your Vampire Lord, your Vampire Thrall, even some magic powers, some special abilities and all of that, play around with giving your Skeleton Warriors some extra stuff, because you've got two blocks of 20 Skeleton Warriors there, and they're all new sculpts. I think it's pretty wicked. And with that, that's the Vampire Count's army list. Happy Halloween. Thank you for sticking through this. Like, comment, subscribe, do all of that good stuff. Thank you for watching. Sign up to the Discord in the description. We've got loads of stuff going on at the moment if you're not already a part of it. It's good stuff. Right,